And we are live. What's up, everybody? You are tuned into the barracks. We got everyone hopping into the live stream right now. Special guests for you today. There he is to my left.
I'm here. I don't know what's going on.
You know him, you love him. He's brought to you by Big Tobacco. What is going on, Yankee Tanky?
We're gonna bring in Marlboro communism.
And right underneath me, it's the ghost with the most, the titan of tinfoil. It's your friendly neighborhood milkman. What's going on, Milk?
Yeah, it's me, friendly neighborhood schizophrenic. Remember, kids, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not actually after you.
You either die an autist or you live long enough to see yourself become a schizo.
That's so true.
Like I said, we got special guests lined up. We got special topics for today. We're going to be, I put in a poll, not a poll, but I just asked if people wanted to hear us talk about Niger. So we're going to be talking about what's going on in Africa, because Africa is on the rise. Even if y'all don't want to talk about it, we're going to make you talk about it, because you might as well jump out of the 21st century if you're not talking about Africa. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be touching a little bit on the K-fob going on in the White House press conference room. We got a new Greta Thunberg popping up out of the woodwork to hop on this climate grift. And we're going to be talking about RFK, which is mostly going to be me taking a victory lap, because I was right. RFK is the Democrat Ron DeSantis, and I love being right. But for right now, while I pull up the clips, so explain to me, because Milkman, you were doing you were looking into a lot of these people posting about.
Oh, you want me to drop you a link?
I have the link for what's her name? I don't even know her name. The girl.
It's Elise something.
Elise Joshi.
From my understanding, she's one of the people that were involved with TikTok for Biden or whatever. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, they're back in October, there was this meeting at the White House where they were the Biden administration was trying to recruit TikTok to push their re-election, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. But they're all pretending that they're not, even though it's so obvious, which is pretty funny. And Nuance Bro has been out here exposing them.
Yeah, Nuance Bro on Twitter. I never really paid attention much to the guy. All I know is that before my last Twitter account got knocked out, he blocked me.
Oh, really? I mean, I don't really know. I just know he's been dunking on these TikTok for Biden people. Or no, they're Gen Z for change now.
Okay.
The change of re-electing Joe Biden. That's the change they want.
A lot of these TikTok Biden accounts popping up. So the fact that you made it all the way here to the White House press conference means that they're really hurting for any sort of credibility that Biden is popular, let alone alive. It's doubtful he has a pulse.
It's not confirmed. It's definitely not confirmed.
It's not confirmed. So there's definitely. I haven't organically come across any of these TikTok Biden accounts, but I've seen people under 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds.
You haven't seen that Harry Sisson guy?
Harry Sissy guy. No.
And Chris Mowry. They're they're 18 and they're
Harry
quintessential
Yeah, those two guys in particular were probably the most cringe of all of them I've seen so far. I mean, they're just all hyper high energy and all of that for no reason. like I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't be sad if someone came across and punched them in the face. Not saying it should happen.
Wait, we
Not
don't
saying it should
endorse
happen.
violence.
Not
Let's watch this chick.
Yeah, this is a long clip. I mean, long for interrupting.
You can cut out Karine Jean-Pierre's bullshit at the end.
I'm just saying, yeah, it's a long clip for interrupting, the White House press secretary. I'm just like,
she doesn't get dragged away like Jose Vega does.
Anyway, okay, muting myself, playing the clip.
Excuse me for interrupting, but asking nicely hasn't worked out. 1 million young people wrote to the administration pleading not to approve a disastrous oil drilling project in Alaska, and we were ignored. So I'm here channeling the strength of my ancestors and generation. Will the administration,
what's this guy doing?
Will the administration stop approving new oil and gas projects and align with youth, science, and frontline communities from the North Slope of Alaska to Louisiana?
First of all, I appreciate your courage.
Appreciate your courage, you woman I've never met before.
Did you see that security guy who just walked up and like looked at her and then walked away? Like
feeding her lines.
Fucking Jose Vega got like ground pounded at one of these. It's ridiculous. It's so interesting that even Biden's most like abject shills have to pretend that they don't actually support him. Like you can go into the comments and she was trying to defend herself and she was saying like, "Oh, I'm on TikTok. I'm always pushing back on the Biden administration." These are the people that he's paying to support him.
I'm always pushing.
And she's saying she's always pushing back on him. Yeah, like they can't even like he can't pay people to pretend that they like him. Like that's ridiculous. And it's the same. One of these people was trying to say they were a nonpartisan organization. Like even people who are getting paid to support Biden are too ashamed to admit they actually support Biden. That would never happen with Trump. Trump people are ride or die unapologetically,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want to quick say something about that security guard. I had myself muted there still. That guy that's the security guard there, I'm going to be real with you. I don't even know if he'd be able to pull her away. Like, they picked the weakest, the most soy boy security guard to pretend to intervene for a second before, they just let her go and talk. Like,
I mean, if there is one thing at this point that the Biden regime is very self-conscious of, it's optics. Because they have someone who is essentially brain dead in the White House. They have Kamala Harris, who is not a human being. They don't make her speak. Whenever they're possible, they don't put her out in public anymore. They run all of these culture war campaigns. They have Dylan Mulvaney because they know Dylan Mulvaney is going to get a lot of people mad, and it shows. And because MAGA get mad, it shows how tolerant the progressive left is, and how tolerant big corporations are. They run. They have St. Pierre as the press secretary. They like optics is something they might not be good at, but they're self-conscious of. And having this, this effeminate, noodly armed security guard, they probably picked him because if it was a big, burly African man, and just like falling on top of this high school girl.
Oh, that would have gotten the boner socialists interested, though.
Barely legal teen gets railroaded by African security guard.
Oh God.
Yeah. I mean, shout out Jose Vega because I'm pretty sure this shit is a direct reaction to Jose Vega, and they're trying to co-opt the intervention model that he sort of popularized. So go watch his clips, and every time he starts going, he gets booed. Everyone in the room starts yelling at him and booing him. And here they all, it's literally, and then everyone clapped, right? Like the meme. Like, this is so fake. Like, if you're getting applaud, like, these are this room of White House press secretary or press corps people, these are the biggest shills in the world. So if they're clapping for an intervention, it's fake by definition. Like, if she said anything anti-establishment, she would have gotten booed like crazy.
Right, exactly. Like going out of his face.
Yankee, what's going on?
I knocked my camera over. We're good.
We got like a sound going on too, though.
A sound?
Yeah, feedback on your end. Just anytime.
I'll mute myself and unmute myself.
I mean, it's anytime you are, just unmute yourself to start speaking. Just
push the talk.
And then
wait, Teray, what were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, like, oh, stop producing oil, as if Biden didn't empty out the strategic oil reserves, as if he hasn't been burning oil rigs in the United States and in Mexico, as if he didn't blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, stopping Germany from being able to have that access to natural gas. Like, Biden has done more to destroy energy and petroleum in the West than any U.S. president in decades. So that's as pro Biden as you can get, but just putting it with like this withering, lilting voice just like makes it seem like, oh, and then she's nervous, so she's standing up to power. Like, no, she's falling lockstep in with like Biden's degrowth, anti-energy Green New Deal.
This is what I was saying about youth organizations. It's like she's like a puppet, because like there's some like Gen Xer who like put her up to this. Like, I don't know. If I was organizing an intervention, I want like a 40-year-old like fat truck driver guy to go yell at Karine Jean-Pierre. I don't want this little girl. Like, what is this? It's Greta again. They're like, Greta's getting too old, and like they're still trying to pretend like she's a little girl. They have like police like carrying her around, which is really weird. But she's like inevitably getting old, so like they got to find another little girl to replace her. It's so gross.
Yeah, Asperger's makes you age like milk.
Selling your soul makes you age like milk.
So yeah, let's move on. I just want to, we had to throw in, a little appetizer before we get into
get our barbs in.
Before we get our barbs in, yeah.
We lost Yankee.
No worries. So I'm talking with our special guest here in the private chat. Oh yeah.
Oh, are we gonna bring him on?
Have you ever noticed you've never seen Yankee Tanky and Voidborn in the same space at the same time?
That was very suspicious.
That was very suspicious.
One out, one in.
Dang. Man, this is why I wanted to fight back on putting the Israeli flag on the thumbnail, because now we got Mossad just taking out our comrades in the background.
Right. I didn't think of that.
There we go.
Well, wait. Okay, I kind of want to address how our Kevin Spacey stream got 53 private quote tweets.
Yeah, these are things that the audience doesn't see in the background, but we got 53 private secret quote tweets from that stream. So we're making rounds in the deep state.
I'm okay. If you can I have permission to be schizo for a second?
For a second, we have a guest we need to introduce.
Okay, I think there's a ghost in the machine, man. I think there's an AI that's running narrative control on Twitter. I've seen some strange things, and there was that whole rate limited thing. I would just say people look out for anything sus going on Twitter.
Elon Musk has finally let loose the AI on his new X brand, and it's running the show now.
I'm not sure.
I actually, I've been doing some my own personal research on Elon Musk and his relation to the World Economic Forum and stuff. I'm sure you guys have probably seen some of my rants about that. But another thing too, he launched his own independent artificial intelligence ethics project.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I even went on the post where he announced it, and I attended the space. The space itself, one of the biggest problems I have with Elon Musk's introduction into the info space on Twitter is that as he came in and he gained ownership, I see a lot of like inflation of certain social media personalities that just kind of don't have anything to say, while people like Haas and Rev, they get stuffed down and they don't talk as much. They don't get to talk as much, especially with people like Mario Narwhal or whatever. Those guys, like, they host these hours long spaces and they say nothing. And this is the same criticism that I would levy against his. Me personally, I attended his AI project announcement, and in the comments, I said, you can draft whatever like AI ethics you want, but ultimately, it comes down to this. It's like whatever if it is what was it? I said I'll try to find it, but basically I said, like, no matter what you do from your own like limited like individualist lens, it's either going to be ineffective or it's going to violate your own principles, your own vocally spoken principles that you supposedly adhere to. And so I said either it's going to be, if it's effective, then it's going to be all encompassing and it's going to squash out competition from non-corporate and non-state actors, right? Because of course the state and corporations are going to be working on these AI technologies. There's no doubt in my mind that these types of technologies are being worked on by the state and massive corporations. If it isn't effective, then you're wasting your time. Your whole presentation of being an ethicist, it's just for naught, or it's just purely performative. If he is using this in order to bolster his own research, which I believe is a real possibility, because when he announced the rebranding of XApp, he had a bunch of people come into the comments and present their own artwork. A lot of it was AI artwork, whether it was from Midjourney or maybe it was Dolly 2. I couldn't tell from all the different artwork, but I believe a lot of it was AI generated in order to provide artwork as quickly as possible for Musk. But basically, he was using that post as an input, as an entry point. So then he provides the prompt, and then real life people give him the product. He was putting in a Midjourney prompt into Twitter, and then people provided him the artwork. And from that, you can actually, what he can potentially do with the way that algorithms work and data scraping, he can take the data that he's gained from that interaction. He could take authentic human interaction and then filter it in to whatever systems he may have developed. And a lot of people, I have financial data that corroborates his collaboration with the World Economic Forum, which runs contradictory to his rhetoric about like being anti-State Department, against anti-State Department in the context of the State Department targeting the Pentagon in order to facilitate war with China. I'm aware of the Pentagon's perspective on war with China. They want to avoid it purely on grounds of pragmatism. That's their whole perspective. Their whole thing is like, we avoid war with China on grounds of pragmatism because we can't it's likely that we might not win it or we may not win it. It's like a coin toss. They don't like coin toss. They don't like toss ups. They want something that's more tangible, right? So my whole prediction with this, like, and I know that like I've gotten a lot of flack for this. My whole prediction is that like you have Elon Musk, who has two different companies that he owns, whose primary institutional holders are BlackRock and Vanguard, major players. BlackRock, particularly, who's officially listed as a strategic key player for the World Economic Forum. Then you have the appointment of Linda Yaccarino, who is a chairwoman. She's an official chairwoman on the board of the World Economic Forum, who's placed as a CEO of XApp. Then Elon Musk steps down in order to facilitate that, and become CTO. Though the game plan from zoom out, right? Zoom out on the timeline. The game plan here is you build up as much trust as possible using Elon Musk as a champion of the people, which he's successfully done. He's earned the trust of the people by taking an anti-imperialist stance. He's dampened the efficacy of U.S. imperialism through his revocation of Starlink in Ukraine. Kudos to him. Hats off. I'll give credit where credit is due. He's gained a lot of trust in this way, and he's built up a lot of trust. He's built up this public persona. You draw as many users as possible to this app. And as XApp continues to consolidate all these different social aspects and mechanisms of societal function, which they've already broadcasted, they're looking towards fintech. They want financial tech involved in this. They're going to use they want to have XApp used as a financial payment app. It's going to be your news app. It's going to be your entertainment app. It's going to be your everything app. The only equivalent is WeChat. On the global stage, they want XApp to be competitive against WeChat in China. To me, I think Oricron made a post about this. Oricron made a post about the potential like imperialist threat that this could pose, in that if it's it could end up being a method and means to which you could spread imperialist propaganda across the world. But I just want to say I'm going to go back to my thesis. You zoom out, the game plan is, here's the game plan. You get as many users as possible on the app. You announce CBDCs, central bank data currencies. And then war with China breaks out, martial law is declared, everything gets revoked. Everything. The free speech, the memes, all the things that was granted to us, all the things that were granted to us, all these civil liberties that were granted to us under Twitter and under Musk, they get revoked under the context of war and martial law. And after that, World Economic Forum is consolidated. United States has officially gone through the Great Reset. That's where it goes.
I want to push back a little bit, because Twitter already was a means for spreading imperialist propaganda all around the world. I mean, ever since the Arab Spring in 2011. So it seems, I don't know, this was kind of something I thought as soon as Elon bought it, that it was sort of like a honeypot. And it was like trying to get people to let their guard down so that like wrongthink could be identified. And that would kind of fit with like with the data scraping, with like AI using it for God knows what. I would also point out that in May there was a Bilderberg meeting in Portugal, and in attendance was OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, Google DeepMind CEO, and the former Google CEO Eric Schmidt. So that was just a couple months ago. I mean, who knows what they talk about? You're not allowed to report it. But the ruling class is very interested in AI, and I think that might be that might play into like what this XApp is really all about. What do you think?
Oh wait, hang on. So we'll use this as a. Well, I want to transition here for a second. We got, But I will say quickly before as a transition, because I want to talk about Niger, and because we went way into the weeds.
Yeah, that was a masterful transition.
Way into the weeds.
Sorry, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting topic. I read your Substack, by the way. It's very
yeah,
you did good work.
and to put a bow on it, really the only sector that the American economy can compete with any of the energy-rich countries or any of the manufacturing-rich countries, Russia, China, any of the BRICS countries, is through software objects. Just not even just technology in general, but software and anything that runs on a microchip.
This has been the case for like quite a while after the deindustrialization. Yeah,
right.
Unfortunately,
so people like Elon Musk realizing that they can't really compete with anyone energy-wise. Yeah, they're just having this enclosure of the American economy, of this dying American economy, and enclosing everyone's data so that what's left of any productivity can be squeezed as much as possible, and nobody has any alternative to
but Musk is not only participating in software. Remember that.
Oh yeah, I mean he's also
he has automobile and energy production. And energy production, yes.
In 2017? No, 2018.
Well, there's also SpaceX as well, which,
Yes.
I mean, we're not thinking about it too much right now, but we're not that far away from extracting resources from asteroids, right? And I'm sure Elon Musk would love a monopoly on that industry.
The reason I think this sort of I'm trying to connect the two, but I'm talking about Niger and all of the African countries that have been having these coups against pro-French presidents and these old legacy French establishments presidents, and that's what Franc-Afrique policies were with France's neo-colonial enslavement of the African colonies, just destroying any ability for them to industrialize, chaining them to these very invasive, not fintech, but financial terms and financial tools to track people, financial incentives to throw yourself into debt, and it creates this cycle of degrowth. And American tech companies are doing the same thing to us.
Exactly, 100%. And also, just to add on to that, shout out to Thomas Sankara, shout out to Gaddafi, rest in peace to those guys. They're vindicated in all this. Every single coup that's been staged in the past few months, in the past years, is a vindication of Thomas Sankara and Gaddafi, 100%.
100%. Yeah, and just to get into details for Niger. I mean, it's going so fast at this point that even today, chatter on Telegram was talking about Libya. The president of Libya wanting to bring in more Russian, Russian influence into their country, and a lot of these people still going into meetings with the PMC Wagner Group, with Prigozhin. So 2 days ago it was Niger. Now it's Libya. All of these French colonies. There's I don't think there's any left.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like pretty much, all the former colonies of France, seem to be having some sort of political upheaval, or, are getting closer to Russia. So, It should be interesting to see what keeps moving forward as, Russia and China seem to have more increased influence in Africa.
And this is something, it almost feels like it was inevitable because everything, as Russia had its own awakening and China had its own awakening, and Laos, the Republic, the Laotian Republic, they had their own awakening. Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera. All these different countries had these awakenings, and now you also see like the socialist revolution of Iran. Everything points towards, and Haas pointed this out himself. I'm basically stealing his notes here. Haas pointed this out himself. He said everything points towards Africa having this this very like deep, red, visceral, powerful awakening. Like everything points towards a united African continent. And when something like that happens, especially with the support and participation of the Belt and Road Initiative from China, imagine the level of economic throughput and development and growth. Like just imagine the beautiful wonders that all these different individuals who didn't have access to the developments of modernity and technology, imagine how many ideas they have that haven't come to fruition due to all these different aspects of apartheid. I feel like Africa isn't talked about as much as they should be given credit for, and I think that Dugan had a lot of foresight in pointing this out. Alexander Dugan pointed out how we believe in the African people and we support them and stuff, and China has been supporting them for the past decade, and I look forward to whatever might come out of the continent. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that people would never anticipate. It's a really cool stream you guys are doing, really interesting. RTSG was looking into this too. They've been investigating this for a while, so this is a really good perspective to cover.
Yeah, I definitely think covering Africa is important. I think there's a very good reason it doesn't get covered, which is that, I think there's so much potential energy in the continent and it's being artificially suppressed. Like, here's a fun fact. You know what the most at-risk population for COVID was? It was African leaders. Because the African presidents of Tanzania and Ivory Coast and Burundi and Madagascar all died of COVID. Quite a coincidence. They were also all critical of the WHO vaccine policy.
And even though the overall death rate in Africa for COVID was the lowest on the planet.
Right. Well, the CIA has long-standing methods of silent execution. With Lumumba in the Congo, they sent in Sidney Gottlieb, the head of MK Ultra, to make this poison that would be undetectable. And I think they were going to put it in his toothpaste. And the idea was that he brushes his teeth and then he gets sick and a few days later he dies. And I'm just saying, COVID is the perfect cover for such an assassination because you're totally inured to deaths. He ended up getting got by Belgians instead. But
funny story about that anecdote about the poison in Lumumba's toothpaste. The reason the CIA decided not to go with that was because they wanted his death to be very public and very gruesome to make sure that no other leaders in Congo would rise up to actually take power for the people like Lumumba did.
It makes
Doesn't
sense.
everything?
They have the means, for sure.
Well, I mean, how is it any different than what the CIA did, or rather the FBI did, to Fred Hampton in the United States, right? It was about basically, putting a message out there that, you will not have sovereignty.
Oh, well, the video of Gaddafi's execution was uploaded to YouTube, and they let it stay up on YouTube for however long. It's like the 21st century equivalent of putting a head on a pike outside your gates. They wanted people to see that shit because I think that video was against YouTube's community guidelines. I'm not an expert, but
yeah, I'm glad you like the direction of talking about Africa, Voidborn, because we got to get good about talking about. I mean, I've been talking about Africa for damn near 5 years. So I have background on it.
I forgot who it was, but it was an African president who was one of the first that I think it was like a shipment of a bunch of vaccines, and then he checked the vials and they were empty, and then he said something is happening, and it made it made the rounds in the news. So it was an African president that was like, "What in the world?" Like they sent us a bunch of fake vaccines and they made us pay for it. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, I'm actually very partial to the hypotheses that you and Yankee Tanky and Milkman have presented here, in that it provides a very effective cover for subtle assassination. And then also, I agree with the public image, the public visage of grisly death and espionage in order to control the masses by fear. Anyone who wants to rise up to this man's position, just be wary that we're going to do the same thing to you. But I want to present a different perspective, because there was a nurse in the United States who actually testified in front of Congress. I forgot her name, and I'll try to DM it to you guys later if I can find it. But she testified in front of Congress as an average nurse in American hospitals. She observed doctors and head doctors and physicians purposefully neglecting people who tested positive for COVID-19 after there was this culturally pervasive idea that was promoted in hospitals during the pandemic, which was basically like, well, it's their fault for getting sick, so they deserve to die. And she observed this as an eyewitness, and she signed a federal document confirming this. So what I would argue is that a lot of whether it's COVID or deindustrialization, or if it's the destruction of agricultural sovereignty, Planned Parenthood, or anything like that, because if you look into the nitty-gritty of Planned Parenthood, it was basically a eugenics program targeting black people. But like I was going to say, everything points towards depopulation. Yep. Everything circles back. What's the common anchor, the common denominator across the board? COVID-19, Planned Parenthood, transgenderism, pornography, sex bots, all these different aspects of not only societal, like cultural perception. It doesn't just influence the mind; it dictates the flow of reproductive sovereignty. One of the things that we can look to from a historical materialist perspective is economic sovereignty. Economic sovereignty, the variables and romance of pure classical freelance capitalism before the destruction of the gold standard, that's gone. The romance of like, oh, I'm going to make it out on my own and become an entrepreneur. After we've learned the intricate inner workings of the World Economic Forum and BlackRock and Aladdin AI, right? It's controlled chaos. So they've done away with economic sovereignty to an extent, and for the most part, the majority of people aren't in on it. But then they've also gotten rid of what else? They've gotten rid of agricultural sovereignty, and they've gotten rid of reproductive sovereignty. Everything is situated towards different implementations of systematic control, and it's to promote this socialistic fascism. It's all to integrate America into socialistic fascism, along with African countries, which actually failed. The France-Afrique fascist paradigm failed.
And you want to know why specifically Africa has these Western hegemonic ghouls terrified, is because in a very short period of time, there is going to be a large explosion in the African population, because you want to talk about depopulation. We know what depopulation looks like for the past 600 years happening on the African continent. Like, people don't realize how underpopulated Africa is. It's the second largest landmass on the planet, but it's one of the least populated. It's the most resource rich continent on the planet, and still one of the least populated. Why is this? And just this centuries long project of, obviously, the transatlantic slave trade and European genocides like King Leopold from Belgium just killing 10 million Africans and chopping their hands off because they wouldn't chop down rubber trees fast enough. So it's the obvious historical genocidal stuff, but then it's the stuff that people don't want to talk about. RFK was talking about it, how it's the vaccine laboratory of the world. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation pushes vaccines that are illegal in the United States, and they just and
what's the common marketing trope for that? Well, we're doing we're doing charity. We're doing charity for these. Yeah. We're helping out.
Yeah.
We're helping the poor. We're helping the poor brown, black, African subhumans. We're helping them. You have to support us. That's their whole. They view them as subhumans.
It's the white
man's their whole thing.
So even if it's purely for and I don't care if if you are like a racist who I don't care about what's going on in Africa. Even if it's purely for self-interest, understanding what's happening in Africa will give you the clearest picture of what's coming for you in 10 years. The difference between colonialism and fascism is 10 years.
This is something I wish a lot of. So let's say I 100% agree with this. This idea, this idea that we shouldn't look at what's going on out there, but everything that has transpired outside of our borders has always found its way back home. Militarization of police, vaccine mandates, this cultural wrongthink that gets enforced by social media and whatnot. Of course, that's being dismantled in front of our very eyes, which is fantastic. I'm for that. But I 100% agree that anyone, especially if you're a racist eugenicist or whatever, I'm not a eugenicist or a racist, whatever. I'm saying that if your whole shtick is we got to promote the white race here, then you're not outside of this. Everything finds its way back to you. If you allow it to happen to other people outside of your own scope, your own horizon of existence, it finds its way back to you regardless. It doesn't. Well,
that's exactly what's happening in France right now.
100%. 100%. Yes.
You see all the destruction, all the chaos. Everyone's the immigrants, you got all these wignats online, on Twitter, on whatever, right? Talking about, this is why, black people are, inferior, and look at what they're doing to France and all this bullshit. But we all know that the whole reason why France is in this position where they have all these immigrants in the first place, well, it's because, what have we been doing in Africa for the last 150 years? What have we been doing in the Middle East for the last 60, 70, 80 years now?
The same thing in South America. What have we been doing in South America? It's the same shit. Everyone wants to complain about immigration, but nobody wants to fucking fix the immigration. Why? What are the reasons behind why these people are leaving their countries? There's nothing there. You guys bombed all of it to shit. Everyone, you have people in Afghanistan, you have grown adult dudes who claim to be Muslims who are raping little boys in broad daylight or whatever. And then you guys complain when Muslims move to your country. You guys complain when South Americans and Hondurans move to the United States. These people have facilitated they've facilitated the parameters for mass immigration, and then they take advantage of cheap immigrant labor, and then in the illusory discourse, in the arena of illusory discourse, they've basically scammed you into believing that the end all be all is that we got to keep these guys out of our country because they're stealing your jobs. They use immigrant labor in order to keep the domestic population disciplined. Haas pointed this out. You're punishing the domestic working class of any given nation, whether it's America or France or any Western European country. You're punishing them by introducing cheap foreign labor into the domestic economy, so that you can enforce enslavement and create a new perception of normalcy amongst the working class in your domestic pool, in your domestic population. It's all.
Wait, I want to pivot to RFK now because I know you're trying to take a victory lap today, but I'm almost done with RFK's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, and he writes about all this shit. He writes about all the COVID vaccine stuff has been going on for decades in Africa under the guise of AIDS, which is, it's like total bullshit. If you have any antibodies against HIV, they'll diagnose you with AIDS. So it's like they can pretty much say whoever they want has AIDS, and then they use that as an excuse to go into Africa and do like vaccine experiments, like Tuskegee style experiments. And he's writing about all this shit, and I feel like DeSantis would not. I mean, I haven't read DeSantis's book, but I imagine he doesn't write about this kind of thing. So I'm kind of torn between this book and what he writes about here and what he's currently saying about Israel. So let's get some takes on I don't know if you have some clips or anything on what RFK Jr. is doing right now.
Yeah, I pulled up one of y'all posted this Nick Brana tweet that.
Oh yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that was itself retweeting Max Blumenthal, who was showing, just showing how badly RFK gave up like any shred of credibility he had by like sharing an event space by being like hosted by Shmuley Boteach, this hardcore Zionist shill, and
Oh yeah. Before we fully like dive into this, just want to say, year zero, like new communist America, complete dissolution of Fort Detrick, complete destruction, obliteration of Fort Detrick.
Fort Detrick is where COVID came from.
Huh?
Fort Detrick is where COVID came from.
Exactly. And then full investigation and dissolution of the NIH, and then nationalization or full liquidation of biotech and Pfizer. That's the only way. That's the only way to rectify.
While we're speaking of things that are going to get us banned, like and subscribe and push the video everywhere so we can avoid shadow bans and fact checkers.
Can't wait to see how many quote tweets this gets.
We are make sure to retweet the Barracks, bringing you the top 100 hits from the FBI's most wanted list. So here is the clip of this is the guy Shmuley Boteach, who is hosting RFK. So who must be giving RFK these talking points. So we'll watch the video, and we'll feel free to interrupt if you want me to pause the video. I'll be muting myself and playing the video now.
We're going to let him speak. Whether I don't agree with Bobby on the vaccines, I'm quintuple vaxxed. I don't agree with Bobby on Ukraine. I am. And by the way, if I pop off in the middle of the speech, then you guys will know I shouldn't have had them. And if I make it to the end, who knows? But we don't have to agree, because that's the whole.
Not quintuple vaxxed.
We haven't. No, he might be, because Israel is the most vaccinated country on the planet. Also, the highest.
But he's a leader, not a follower.
But that fact, him saying that, that you were torn, like RFK could write this book about vaccines, and now he's shilling for Israel. Like, how can we reconcile the two? I mean, it's because all policies are subservient to the imperial ones. Israel is the number one exporter of wars that the U.S. will get involved in, and has been for decades. So any values that they have will be subservient to that. They'll become a pet project to running that. That's your job as the U.S. president. And so, like any pet projects you have or any values you have to be subservient to that for you to even get your foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll go ahead.
I think that, when you're looking at this whole situation, we should keep in mind that, I completely lost my train of thought. I was trying to go along, try to pull thoughts out of my head, and nothing came. Go ahead.
I was going to say, hold up. I was going to say you can see the same phenomena with DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, like he dives headfirst into the anti-gender politics stuff, which is, that's a common sense position. It's a fucking common sense position at this point. But the reason why he does this so heavily is because he wants to weaponize it as a rhetorical tool, so that you can garner as much support as possible. But recently, people started waking the fuck up, including Ian Miles Strong. So now it doesn't work anymore. Everyone has recognized him as a massive dork, which is what he is. He's a fucking dork, and he's a loser who's trying to copy Trump's style. But essentially, he couldn't pull it off because he's a stiff, uncharismatic, robotic warmonger. He wants to murder and destroy like millions upon millions of Chinese and Russian lives. That's his whole shtick. So eventually, everyone saw through the ruse. It's going to be the same with this Zionist guy. I guarantee you, it's going to be the same with this Zionist guy. Oh, I'm anti-vaccines. You got to like me. Please like me.
Actually, that's a very good way of putting it, is like common sense position. We think of it as a good thing. Someone who has common sense positions, common sense policies. But the fact that everyone there's this consensus in America now that, that the vaccines didn't work and that COVID was a scam, and also that this gender nonsense, that the pronoun people are insane.
100%, yeah.
The fact, and so like taking that common sense position, but as a countercultural, as putting yourself as a countercultural figure, it's a false flag. It's a false flag to get in the door for the war machine. Like,
it is. It's like they'll create the diseases so we buy their cures.
Yeah, and you can point that out and be like, yes, I'm pointing it, but like we knew that already. So him pointing it, we allow ourselves to get fooled that him pointing out the obvious and taking a stance on it, like, oh, it's refreshing to see a politician state the obvious for once.
And what does it point to? What's like one of the biggest symptoms in like American politics? What does that point to? It points to like this exasperated desperation. Like when Robert F. Kennedy Jr., when he starts talking about like bringing Americans together and stop the cancel culture and stop hating one another and love your neighbor, like these are supposed to be virtues that we used to have these. This was American commonsensical values, right? This is something that people desperately want. This. We are so alienated and propagandized against one another that people are sick of it. People are sick of the Twitter discourse. People are sick of the gay, faggoty, like cancel culture stuff. They're very exhausted by this, right?
I just want to interrupt real quick and just remember we are on YouTube.
My bad. Sorry.
As it comes out, I know.
So I'm not trying to get you guys. I'm going off the cuff, but I'm basically saying like they as Milkman pointed out, we create the affliction and you buy the cure, right? All of this visceral distinction and argumentativeness and like vicious, like especially when you look to the original founding of like infrared, especially, all they were doing was quoting Stalin and Lenin, and people freaked out and they sent death threats and all that. I've been victim of the same stuff, death threats, I've had people like send like pictures of dead bodies to my parents and whatnot because of a phishing link. Like
Wow.
insane stuff. These people are tired of that. The American people are tired of that. So then they segue out Robert F. Kennedy. Well, we need to come together as American. This sentiment is the same populistic sentiment that's expressed by Trump. They are trying to replace Trump with either DeSantis or RFK. People are tired and exhausted with this mentality.
More recently with Vivek Ramaswamy. Now that just DeSantis' campaign is dead in the water, Vivek Ramaswamy is the one gaining the most momentum to replace as like an actually charismatic Ron DeSantis, who
and he's still an anti-China war hawk.
Oh, absolutely. We're gonna play more of this clip so we can see exactly like how badly this this Zionist.
Yeah, I wanna make a point real quick first. There's this weird paradox right now where like getting censored is getting boosted. Like everyone's talking about how RFK Jr. is being censored, but at the same time, he's everywhere. And it's like the most obvious example is probably with banned books. Like you walk into Barnes and Noble, and there's a stand of banned books, but like they're right there in Barnes and Noble, and it's like a marketing strategy. And I kind of feel like that might be what's going on here. Like
it's the same thing.
Censor him at a censorship hearing. It's like so blatant. I don't know.
It's the same thing when you look at the co-optation, when like the internet, Twitter, quote unquote countercultural punks were throwing a shit fit about, oh, there's an accurate representation of countercultural punk music in the new Spider-Man movie, and they were like, and people were literally sitting there as like, you didn't realize this? You didn't realize how your counterculture movement got co-opted? It's the same thing.
It didn't get co-opted. It was boner socialism from the inception. But we don't even talk about that.
I'm gonna play the clip, but yeah, to your point, Milkman. Yeah, if you have a persecution complex, if that's part of your movement, then you're not serious about winning any sort of political power. So anyone like
Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes.
Everyone's talking about Nick. He dominates the negative space of social media.
Nick Fuentes actually is putting people like in positions of like leadership. He's filling up important and planning to fill up more positions of public office, businesses, and actually like, and he's not looking to get on like mainstream pages. He has his own website and he has his own like conferences. I mean, like people like Zherka, who
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate
gets censored, and when everyone in the fucking country is talking about him, but he's
Andrew Tate and Kanye, who's backed down from a lot of his statements from last year, his awesome statements from last year, I'll say. But all three of them, will say that their message is important because it's being persecuted, but as soon as they get an opportunity to take actual power to make a difference, they ghost. They ghost. They cannot function without that persecution complex. That's why the red pill morphed, and we talked about this on the last stream. That's why the red pill morphed from how to pick up chicks to how to pick up chicks, but it's against the degrowth agenda. And you make it the persecution complex.
It's still in service of the all-coming boner.
Right. It's still in service of boner socialism. So for that, if you have a
let's watch the clip.
People love Trump because Trump is actually like very censored and actually on threat of going to jail and actually like this.
Trump was the opposite. Trump was the opposite of censored. He was the Pied Piper candidate. He was boosted everywhere.
Yeah, he was boosted
because they thought he would be so easy to beat. So he was the opposite.
They did boost him in thinking that like, oh, this character is so ridiculous that nobody would ever buy it. But then people were like, you know what? I actually want ridiculousness. I want something that isn't this milquetoast, like canned think tank developed character.
Like, let's get this
Well, we
guy
all
in.
know. We all know. I'm the reason why CNN actually had good ratings. They had terrible ratings. I brought those ratings up.
First U.S. president
true.
taken off of Twitter. First U.S. president indicted on federal charges, and they actually brought those charges all the way up to he got booked.
Yeah, but
First US
2016 was the year that it mattered. Everything after is them trying to fix their mistake.
There's no other person who has any chance of beating Biden. Like, even though they're going to steal the election, they have no, he's the only popular candidate.
I think RFK Jr. might get the nom. Honestly,
we should.
There's no way it's Biden. There's no way it's Biden. They're not doing Weekend at Bernie's 2. It's not possible.
Should.
I don't know.
We should.
Biden.
We should finish.
Trump. He's demented.
I'm gonna finish the clip.
Yeah, I was about to say we should finish. We should finish this clip.
It's the only place in the
All right, let's finish this.
freedom of expression for all
Use
citizens.
your microphone.
It's the only place where women have rights. As you know, this week, people in Iran are being jailed. Women are being jailed for wearing habibs, or not wearing habibs. It's the only place where gays have rights. There was 2 weeks ago a gay pride parade in Israel with 150,000 people in both Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. At the same time, the government of Iran is hanging gays from cherry pickers and castrating them. The conduct of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, when they go into Palestinian territories is beyond anything in the world. Colonel Camp, one of the leading military historians and tacticians around the world, said, last week, 2 weeks ago, when Israel went to Jenin, Jenin is a bomb factory. Most nations, Russia, when it was dealing with issues like Jenin and Chechnya.
Jenin is a bomb factory? Are you?
Yeah, it's really bad.
Are you fucking kidding me?
RFK is 100% going full federal, especially when he's talking shit on Iran. 100%.
That's insane. That they don't That's like what Israeli politicians say themselves.
And Max Blumenthal brings up a good point that it's not likely that RFK was always this anti-Palestinian person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invited Max Blumenthal into his home, because Max Blumenthal is pretty candid about if you're a Zionist, he'll grill you about it. So these talking points are very fresh. He mispronouncing. He at one point in the video he mispronounces Chechnya. He calls hijabs habibs.
Yeah, that's what
I think he's trying to do everything in his power to not be called an anti-Semite, but he's going to be called an anti-Semite no matter what he does.
Yeah, he's trying not to get Corbyned.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like you don't need to go this far to not get Corbyned.
It's the scale of it that really is.
Jenin is a bomb factory. That's obscene, dude.
Oh, let me keep playing the clip. There's a really dark moment that I thought about the other a couple hours ago, but yeah, I want to get to it.
All right, keep it going.
Simply bomb the neighborhood because you have a neighborhood where virtually 100% of the people who live there are supporting terrorism.
Oh my God.
The terrorists are hiding behind civilians, and where everybody is involved in bomb making. And those bombs are destined to kill civilians, to be strapped on men, women, and children, and kill civilians in Israel. Most nations, and we've done this ourselves, and clearly Russia was doing it in Chechnya. Chechnya would go.
Chechnya? Dude, what is happening?
So again, these talking points feel so fresh because just Chechnya is his father was JFK. He knows what Chechnya is, or his uncle was JFK. So anyway,
go in there and bomb that neighborhood. What the Israeli IDF does is they send people to do retail combat, door to door, putting IDF soldiers at risk in order to avoid civilian casualties collapse.
That's the dark thing. The phrase retail combat is the most.
What? Okay. Let's actually. No.
Tested, dark, like phrase.
No. This is a fantastic term. This is a great term. He's saying that like what was it again that he's accusing who of engaging in retail combat?
The IDF.
The IDF. It's very applicable, isn't it? The majority of the United States history within a contemporary understanding, it all relates back to coin wars. United States is not officially at war because we pay other people to do it.
Counterintelligence, just for people who aren't in the know.
Exactly. Counterintelligence, coin wars. We pay Academy, Blackwater, all these different military corporations, right? If you describe the IDF as retail warriors, it kind of makes sense. It kind of destroys his whole pro-Israel position, doesn't it? His own terminology obliterates his own position. Why is he pro-Israel? We send billions upon billions of dollars over the years to Israel. They are retail warriors.
Yeah, mercenaries.
They're mercenaries.
Maybe it's a Freudian slip because, like, he knows he's lying. He's not stupid. He knows he's lying right now.
Nobody spontaneously comes up with the phrase retail combat. That's the kind of 1984, like this focus group tested phrase that politicians come up with. So instead of saying the Israeli military is killing people in their homes, and then saying no, don't say that. Say retail combatants are neutralizing targets in.
Yeah, it's like the George Carlin's softening of language.
Yeah, like retail combat, of this idea of like targeting civilians in their homes, like no-knock raids by the military to go like to target you in your home, kill you, and then evacuate is crazy.
Does this get worse? I actually haven't seen this, but it's way worse than I thought it was.
There's another there's another 2 minutes. Let's keep playing it because we have to purge RFK from our souls.
Yeah, I think you were right, Teray. Should have listened. I mean, this is a red line. If you're willing to be this dishonest, I can't trust you.
And there's all this. I encourage y'all to go look up Nick Brenna's post because it does go into the weeds about the dirty details of Israel.
Apparently he was a Russiagator too, which I don't know, but Nick Brenna's a good follow in general. They got screwed with Cornel West, screwed them, but
again, persecution complex. Like I called Cornel West out like 3 years ago as a dusty.
I'm sick of him calling people his brothers, dude. These people are not my brothers. Joe Biden is not my brother.
Yeah, Cornel West.
I'm sick of it.
Cornel West.
It's obsequious and it's naive, and I'm tired of it.
Cornel West had so much
war face. Show me the war face.
You have to say the brother the right way. You need to be like, let me listen here and listen there, brother. This is the way you should be saying, brother.
You gotta say it. You gotta say it in like a cocaine fueled like what is it? A cocaine fueled like WWE wrestler way. You gotta say it like oh yeah, brother. It's about to get real.
Brother, it's getting real. It's the Yankee Savage up in the barracks.
Macho Man Randy Savage for president, I think, is something we could all unite behind.
Let's watch the clip.
In the recent Jenin attack, there was 12 terrorists who were killed, all of them involved in bomb making, all of them involved in planning attacks on Jewish civilians, and not a single innocent person, child, or civilian. Israel is
That's a
unique
lot,
in the
right?
Mideast for saying we're only going to attack.
They did kill children in that attack, right?
Not a single innocent child. That's a wild thing to say.
Yeah, guilty. They were guilty children.
Guilty children.
Military targets.
Woof.
And they're very, very disciplined about doing so. Palestine, the Palestinian Authority, in contrast, follows a long tradition of deliberately targeting civilians. So anybody, and not only that, but they have a pay-to-slay policy. That is the official policy of the Palestinian Authority. If you kill a Jew, not a member of the IDF, if you kill any Jew, you are going to get awarded with pay for life. And if you go to jail or you're killed, your family will get payments for life.
That can't be true. They can't afford that.
And the official policy of Hamas is the genocide of all the Jews. So they consider, and this, by the way, in 1948, when Israel was attacked at its birth, the plans were captured of Syria and Egypt and the other nations, and their plan was complete extermination of the Jews. They took the side of Hitler during.
When Israel was born in 1948, their plan was to, when Israel steamrolled through Palestine and pushed people into the ocean, I feel like he didn't have these talking points even a couple of months ago. Like Sirhan killed his father allegedly, but he said to this day he says that he doesn't think Sirhan, a Palestinian man, killed his dad.
I mean,
There was a lot of animosity because, like, the Sirhan, the alleged killing of his dad by Sirhan was used to demonize the Palestinian population as a whole, and him pushing back against that. I feel like I don't know where this is coming from. This, like, oh, Israel was born peacefully and it just came into existence in 1948. I have no idea where this is.
Maybe Mossad got to him, Maybe Mossad is like, you need to be harder and, actually be more supportive of Israel. And if you're not, you might end up like your uncle.
Yeah, well, he probably knows that Mossad was involved in that. But it's just, he's like more Zionist than Mike Pence. Like, this is crazy. And I want to make a point that the people I see really pushing back on this are like leftists, like Nick Cruz and that Putin's Comrade Misty chick, and their critique is just so toothless because the leftist critique of Israel is like, oh, the poor Palestinians, and you know what? That's not going to work because people are sick of that shit. People remember the babies being thrown out of incubators. People remember, the Ukraine shit going on right now. Like, you're not going to, if you want to criticize Israel, you should talk about how it affects us. You should talk about USS Liberty. You should talk about the Lavon affair. You should talk about how they own all our fucking politicians, how they're passing laws that are restricting our free speech, how they pull us into wars in the Middle East. But leftists, they call that like anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
So let's talk about it.
You want to talk about 9/11?
I think we can. I don't think YouTube has any type of things about 9/11. I don't know if we can talk about
the tricky thing.
But that's what this really is. It's like, yo, you should pull up that clip I sent you of Netanyahu. Do you have that?
I have it pulled up, yeah.
It's a tricky.
Let's see what exactly these people think of us.
It is a tricky and touchy subject because even Haas has tried to. Getting into the details of 9/11 is a tricky and touchy subject on YouTube.
I mean, I can say that there should probably be a reopening of a new investigation of what actually happened, but that's never going to happen.
It's if anything, if they do reopen an investigation on 9/11, it'd be superfluous at this point because a lot of independent journalists, especially the ones at the Gray Zone, they've pretty much, they've confirmed the intuition of a lot of, hot-blooded American patriot suspicions about the official narration.
At least two of the pilots were CIA assets. You mean that story?
Google dancing Israelis. Google dancing Israelis. That's all. I guess that's all I can say. Let's watch this. Watch what Netanyahu thinks of Americans.
It's a little fuzzy, so I apologize.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should read it in case anyone's just listening.
Right. He says, I mean, a large-scale attack on the...
Yeah, he's talking about he wants to dunk on the Palestinians.
A large-scale attack on the Palestinian Authority, causing them to fear that everything is about to collapse. Fear is what brings them to...
Hold on, but then again, the world will say that we're aggressors. And I was thinking we could do it like a dialogue.
Oh yeah, like theater. Oh god.
Like theater.
Oh no, we're becoming theater children.
Oh, god.
We're becoming the theater kid deep state.
we're already the theater kid deep state. They can say whatever they want, and he said, "But aren't you afraid what they'll say, BB?" No. Keep going.
Especially today, the U.S. I know how they are. America is something that you can easily maneuver and move in the right direction. And even if they say something, so then they say something. So what? 80% of Americans support us. It's absurd. We have such support there. And here we're thinking, what should we do if... Look, I wasn't afraid to maneuver.
That's all you need to see. So he's just straight up saying that we're a bunch of dumbasses who will support them no matter what. And why wouldn't they think that? I mean, the amount of shit they've done against the American people, and they do still have 80% support. I mean, let's
be real.
Foreign country could get away with the shit that they do? What other foreign country could get away with AIPAC? I mean, we have this 3 fucking years of Russiagate where Democrats are crying every goddamn day. Rachel Maddow's crying every goddamn day about Russian interference. Meanwhile, Israel owns all our fucking politicians. If you don't kiss the AIPAC ring, you're fucked.
Let's be real for a second here. The only force in the Western world that I see that has more power than Israel is the British Crown, right? And which Israel is basically a creation of the British Crown. So, when you look at Israel, it's not just the United States, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, you go to pretty much any of the larger Western European countries, pretty much Israel has all of their politicians of all of their political parties pretty much bought and paid for. I mean, that's really how it is within pretty much most of the Western government. That's the reality we face. I mean, and I'll even be real too, even though I would say that Russia's position over time has gotten better on Israel, even Israel has an influence on the Russian government, frankly, right? There's a lot of historical ties for that reasoning between the Soviet Union sending, Jewish people to Israel. At that time, the Soviet Union did support the establishment of Israel. They thought it was going to end up being a socialist project. It obviously wasn't. There was no great, Soviet Republic of Great Israel. That does not exist, right? But, there is historical reasons for that. And that's part of the reason why even today, Israel has an influence over the Russian government. Honestly, Israel, they have influence over the Indian government. Israel has more influence than almost any other country in the world, except for China, right?
China does business with Israel too. I don't know if they have influence, but
I would say they do business with them, but I would disagree that they would say that Israel has influence over China. China might be one of the few countries in the world, frankly, that Israel has no real influence over outside of doing business. I have no idea what just happened.
I feel like
My phone's dying. I'm very sorry, guys.
All right.
Oh no!
We lost him. We are an hour and a half deep. It's frozen
Dang.
saluting. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to do this dance of what you can and can't talk about. But they no American should support Israel. They are the most blatant foreign enemy of the American people, and it's only because of media brainwashing that people can't see that. But you can look on Wikipedia and say, look up the Lavon affair, look up USS Liberty. You can see clearly that they are Russia's never done shit to us. Russia's never done any shit like this. Russia's never blown up U.S. ships, but we all hate Russia, and Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. They're our greatest ally. It's goddamn absurd. And you know who's really brainwashed are American Jews. American Jews get sent to Hebrew school when they're like teenagers, and they just get fucking brainwashed. And they don't know. They don't know what is actually going on. They go on Birthright, which is a total propaganda trip. They get taken around Tel Aviv and like, oh, it's all metropolitan and cool. And they don't take them to Gaza. They don't take them to the West Bank. And they've just got all these social engineering brainwashing programs that this like complete enemy country. This country is an enemy of the American people, and Americans support it. And so does RFK Jr. So does Marjorie Taylor Greene. So does Trump. It's like there's no way out. I mean, this is why I value Nick Fuentes, because he's the only person who's talking about this. And I mean, look what happens to him. But he's at least, I mean, he ties it to Jews, which I don't think Israel is a Jewish state. But at
Israel is definitely not a Jewish state.
Yeah. Agree with that. I mean, they castrate Ethiopian Jews, so that doesn't really make sense if it's a Jewish state, right? And also the biggest the biggest Zionists are the secular Jews who are like atheists, whereas like the hardcore Jews, the Orthodox Jews in New York, were out there protesting RFK Jr. and they were wearing Palestinian flags and saying Israel doesn't represent us. So it's not as simple, I think, as Nick makes it out to be. But I think it's important to bring up that this foreign country, which is a proxy for the British Empire, it's British. It's a proxy for British influence, has completely dominated our political system.
Yeah, we're seeing, and I've had this suspicion for a while that as the neo-colonial era comes to a close with Ukraine, this financing of client states, what's left is just this Zionization of other countries, of balkanizing Russia, China, African states. That's why we're seeing all of these. We're seeing a lot of fake countries pop up over the past 2 years, and like the resurging importance of Taiwan, fake country, resurgence of the Serbia Kosovo war over secessions, resurgence of political opponents being jailed in Biafra, which is a separatist state in Nigeria, funded by Britain again, by British oil companies. The resurgence of people trying to free Kurdistan, a fake country. The resurgence of there's like so many more of them. Like there's so many.
Xinjiang separatists.
Xinjiang separatists for East Turkmenistan.
Right, East Turkmenistan, yeah.
Turkmenistan, another fake country. And you have what's his name? Some Romanian Nazi just showing a map of what Russia would look like when it's broken up into 52 different ethnic states. Like the Zionization of the world is picking up steam now that like there's no more financial infrastructure with these international banks like the IMF to fund the client states. It's just breaking up what's left and hitting everyone in a permanent race war.
Yeah, Britain is the divide and conquer empire. This is how they've always done it. Whenever they go in somewhere, like when they went into India, they went to the sheiks who were like a minority and gave them a bunch of guns and just stoke racial tensions with their propaganda.
So is it any coincidence that politicians in the U.S. are now talking about a national divorce?
Yeah, dude, you're totally right. Oh, the race war shit is getting crazy on Twitter. Like it's on both sides. It's what it is. They want people fighting race wars. Well, it's like Lyndon Johnson said, you convince the lowest white man that he's better than the lowest black man, he won't notice while you pick his pocket. And it goes both ways.
So like I said, yeah, I mean, yeah, the race war stuff is. I mean, yeah, the race war stuff is. I don't know why people keep getting into that fight. Just
because of the propaganda, because they're inundated with. Like, I see so many fucking clips of like black people robbing stores or beating people up because they're trying to get me mad at black people, and it's so obvious.
But like I said, the difference between colonialism and fascism is 10 years. So all of these fake separatist countries that are popping up, pay attention to who's calling for separatist movements in the United States over the next few months, over the next few years. We are going to see this pop up. We're already seeing this pop up with conversations like a national divorce. I would not be surprised if, as the immigrant crisis gets worse, we're going to hear from certain states like, well, we should just secede from the union. We should just no, the union is where our strength comes from. We need to get bigger, not smaller. We need to take over Canada and become twice as big, not half.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point, actually.
Like, this is the whole basis for national strength, is as a union. But people want to pretend like, we'll just cut the country in half because I want to get away from these liberals. Am I right? You're getting away from these liberals by cutting the country in half and then bifurcating the ability to produce energy, to be able to get like, how, like 1/6 of the nation's food comes from California. Oh, but you want them to secede? No, that's stupid.
It is. United we stand, divided we fall. It's like the snake that's all cut into pieces.
That is literally a founding idea of the country. So anybody talking about this in the months to come, sniff them out immediately for what they are. Just fascist, signaling to finance capitalists that they are 100% willing to split this country in order to divide the resources amongst themselves, like they did in the creation of Biafra for Nigerian oil, like they're doing with Taiwan to be able to get a monopoly over the supply of microchips, like they're doing in all of these, like on all the fake countries surrounding China to encircle China and balkanize them, like they're doing in all of these fake countries.
That was based. That was so based. You're right. It's sort of like when because a lot of leftists support this like land back, balkanize the U.S. kind of stuff, and it reminds me of under Teddy Roosevelt, when everyone thinks of Teddy Roosevelt as a trust buster, but he really wasn't. I mean, he was completely on board with all these people, and when he broke up Standard Oil, it actually increased Rockefeller's wealth because he didn't touch Chase Manhattan, which was the real center of power. So if you're breaking up like states and land masses, but you're keeping together the banks, you're just increasing the power of the banks because they're going to play people off each other and use it to make more money. That's how banks make money. They make money through war. And imagine if Texas and California were different countries, they'd go to war like right away. And then you'd have Wall Street and City of London would make a killing off of it. So I think you're totally right. That's a good rant.
Yeah, and ultimately, eventually, we're going to have to, reconcile with liberals in this country and conservatives in this country who are just liberals. but liberals, but with a 10-year time delay. Like the conservatives of today who just want to go back to the traditional ways of American rainbow flags, and none of this neo-pronoun stuff. Go back to gay marriage, which they weren't
There's so many people like that. There's so many people like that.
So they're
James Lindsay.
They're just liberals. We're going to have to reconcile with people with political differences in this country, but we're going to have to do it as a union. And yeah, the only condition I have for this, and this is, and we'll wrap things up because it's weird to be on Yankee Tanky's YouTube channel without Yankee Tanky, but is that the union is only it's not an end in and of itself. It's a means to national sovereignty. There are conditions like if like how Abraham Lincoln said, like we're not going to unify with the Confederate States if they preserve the slave power, as a constitutional, like an enshrined constitutional right to enslave people. And he said, no, then we're not going to unify because that's making permanence an affront to God and humanity. So there are conditions in which we in which unification is unacceptable, for things like war, turning Mexico into the next Afghanistan for one, war with Taiwan, shilling out to Israel. But like a lot of that stuff is like far over there, on like most people are on board with like not being involved in like wars over there, and so we have to focus on here, on very local problems.
All right, we wanna close it out.
Yeah, we'll close it out.
Voidborn, you still here? Oh, I think he's gone.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I'm still in here. Yeah, I've just been listening to you guys.
Okay, you want to make a closing statement?
The closing statement. Yeah, I agree that I agree with Churi, like poking fun at the people that are just like, we gotta return with a V. We have to return with a V to the days of normal gayness. It's like, it's kind of like, no, 'cause something that like there's actually someone who talked to me about this, and Basil has pretty decent takes on this too on Twitter.
Basil's
yeah. Basil's good at pointing out some of this stuff. But this idea of like we return to the less gayness, it's a huge misnomer, because the gay pride events with homosexuals like showing their genitals to children in broad daylight in the streets, this stuff would be entirely impossible without the modern contemporary sexual revolution in the first place. You can see elements of this awful cultural degeneracy. It first started within the particularity of America. It first started with the free love movement and the hippie movement and all that stuff. So it started.
It first started with the amendment that allowed women to vote. I'm just going to.
It also, yeah, 100%. It did start with the amendment of allowing women to vote, and there were also women who were anti-suffragettes who said that it was ugly, fat feminists that wanted to vote, and they were disobedient to their husbands. And if you look at the caricatures, they're actually really funny, the way that they drew them. But I was going to say, like, instead of, and Alexander Dugin gets into some of this too, where like what essentially is happening, it relates to the sexual liberation movement, but it goes back to the 60s. It's part of a psyop in order to break down family relations and gender relations But in general, Dugan also points out how, like, instead of having this hyper focus on distinction between the genders, which gives rise to these different perversities, Dugan says that we need to conceive of a new approach towards gender that resembles a biblical one almost, where the only way of transcendence for humanity on Earth is an approach towards a gender expression that's muted but still distinct. It's a distinction that doesn't have to be made explicit or has to be said out loud, which is something that was kind of in place already to begin with. You look at someone and in your mind you register, right? In your mind, the way that they carry themselves, the way that they speak, the tone of their voice, they are masculine, they are feminine. But then in the future, it'll be this muted, instead of this, because in pornography, there's this overstated perverse overexpression of one distinction towards another, the masculine towards the feminine. Instead, it would be something that's understated and muted in a way that gives rise to an authentic expression of these distinctions while resembling this angelic, almost genderless type of expression. It's this very delicate balance. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I do like the idea of a muted distinction, a subtle distinction. I mean, ultimately, I think that's necessary for larger political divisions in America as well. Like, we need to get comfortable with. I mean, first of all, sublating difference within an American partisanship of being partisan to this country, and as long as you are partisan to an America First approach, like, then all political differences within that are muted but distinct. Like, we become comfortable with differences, and we can learn to live alongside them, and even synthesize with them to push an American development, like a distinctly American development. Milkman?
Sure, I'll just try and tie it together. It's like it seems like that first clip of the girl yelling at Karine Jean-Pierre, but like it's kayfabe and they're on the same team. It kind of seems like a microcosm of what's happening with RFK Jr. I'm not going to pass judgment yet, but that's kind of what it seems like at this moment. That it seems like he's getting destroyed by the establishment, but that's at the same time boosting him, and at the same time he still supports Israel. And I mean, if you support Israel, you can't really be anti-censorship or anti-war or anti-corruption. So it's like the same thing being repeated on a higher level. And like, this is the kind of distinction they give us. They give us not a muted distinction, but a distinction without a difference, where it's just like two heads of the same dragon that are pretending to go at each other. And meanwhile, the body's just getting fatter and fatter. And I don't know. I think that what Yankee says about the fourth pilled position, I think it's that's how we need to be thinking. We need to be thinking outside the box. We need to be thinking like these options that are presented to us. It's like 3-card Monty, right? In 3-card Monty, the con isn't getting you to pick the wrong card. It's in getting you to pick a card at all. And what you really should do is, I don't know, like mug the guy who's trying to scam you or whatever. Like, you got to think. You got to think laterally. You got to think in infrared vision, non-Euclidean intelligence. Yeah, non-Euclidean intelligence. Exactly.
We're making it a thing.
We got to be thinking in 4 dimensions here, because they control the 3 dimensions. You know, they with the capital T control the 3 dimensions, and they're smart. They're not stupid. Like, they've definitely noticed that getting censored gives you a boost. And it's been noticed for so long that it's dribbled down to like normie liberals with the banned books and Andrew Tate. And like, they know that the mainstream media has no credibility. They know that the Democratic Party has no credibility. you need to be thinking. We need to be outfoxing the narrative control, the Tavistock, like social engineers. We need to be thinking in 4 dimensions, non-Euclidean. I guess that's my closing statement. Yankees bad.
I 100% agree that we need to be beyond the parameters of that which is set before us.
Yeah, beyond the visible spectrum, absolutely.
Beyond the visible spectrum, but then it's like some of this stuff is in order to be beyond the visible spectrum, you have to understand the full spectrum itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same critique that infrared levies against the leftists, who on a superficial level they claim the historical tradition of Marxism, Leninism without having gone through the work of understanding the wealth and depth and wisdom of knowledge that gave rise to them in the first place. So then it's like you have to go through how are we going to actually combat weaponized weaponized image proliferation and cyberneticization without actually going through the process of understanding how these things come about, not just on a financial level or making philosophical, sociological observations of their consequences, but genuinely understanding the mechanisms. So I think that
it happens on the right too, where they say, "Oh, well, it's the Jews," because we're not allowed to talk about that. So that must
the JQ shit is so it's so stupid. It's getting exhausting at this point. The JQ shit is so exhausting.
It's low IQ is what it is, because it's like, oh, it's like reverse psychology. It's like, oh, this is actually something Destiny said, which I don't like Destiny, but I thought this was kind of insightful. He said, if you're in a pack of sheep and there's a shepherd and he says go right, and every time he says go right, you go left instead, you're still being herded. And that was kind of insightful, because that's what these people are doing. It's like they set the parameter. It's 3-card Monty. They set the parameters, and you say, oh, well, I don't like you, so I'm going to do the thing you don't like. But like they set those parameters too,
It's the one of the basic principles of scientific theories, which is more important than empirical evidence, more important than what you can see with your eyes, which is empirical evidence, is falsification. Can this theory be falsified, and is that falsification theory more credible than mine? Like, they have all this empirical evidence, that's the big, oh, I'm noticing patterns. I'm just noticing, but your eyes can lie to you. Like, people have wrong perceptions all the time, and even if their perceptions are approaching a correct theory, your theory of why the phenomenon you notice might be wrong. So you need to falsify your point and make sure that your point, you can't falsify an all-consuming Jewish conspiracy.
Right, because if you falsify it, they say they're Shabbos goys, which is such a cope. You'll never catch me coping like that.
Like, if you can't falsify it, then I'm sorry, but your theory is garbage, and you have reached the limit of your cultural relevance. You're just getting by on inertia at this point, and eventually your audience will grow old and tired.
Oh, well, I think there's support. I think there's ruling class support behind it, because it's blowing up on Twitter. I think there's got to be some support behind it.
Which really brings Nick Fuentes to question, frankly. And that's something we always have to keep in mind.
Kanye West is now under investigation.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What for?
So for having what's his name, Milo Yiannopoulos, running his campaign, but Milo wasn't registered as an American citizen while running the campaign, so it's counting his campaign.
That guy's a fucking snake. He should never let Milo near him.
Yeah, most definitely. Milo is like probably one of the worst of these people, because let's also remember, opposite politics than Nick Fuentes in the context of Russia, even, right? Nick Fuentes, at least, bare minimum, he's like, I support Russia against Ukraine, right? Milo's like Ukraine all the way. So,
Milo will say anything. He just wants power. He has zero principles.
I mean, being pro-Russia and being anti-war being like for the American people and getting us out of war, that's no consolation. That's the number one thing, which is why it's disappointing that he focuses on this theory that can't be falsified and is getting people nowhere, is because he has the main crux of his political positions is correct, but his strategies of achieving political power are wrong. So that's the most frustrating thing.
Also,
like,
his audience is a lot fucking dumber than he is.
Yeah, that's the other.
Yeah.
I gotta say, they're dumb as shit.
Like Haas and Jackson do the work of educating and building consciousness in their audience, and we're all still dumb as shit compared to them, but they're making the effort to like give people.
I don't know. There's a lot of dumb infrared accounts too.
Yeah,
it's you know it's I gotta tie it back. It's because they're not anti-degenerate enough.
Yeah,
gotta purge the burner socialists, the people who are only in it to talk about how bitches be shopping and how to pick up girls. You gotta purge those people. We gotta be wielding that hashtag be normal like Mao's little red book. We gotta be going on the timeline. No horny posting, no sliding in the DMs. All right. Well, this is for another stream. We're almost at 2 hours. We should
I will just say real quick that I have been very consistent on this. I probably was one of the first people. What was my debate? The first debate I had with Haas. I was calling out him for committing haram by wearing a wife beater. So keep that in mind.
No, I'm not.
I am in Mam Yankee Tanky.
I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you guys. Listen, if you will say, "Yeah, I'm dumb," you're not dumb. Okay? Because dumb people think they're smart, and that's essential to being dumb.
Dude, I am 100%. I'm 100% sure that like, no matter how autistic or obsessive that I get, trying to cover different parameters of things and like strategic like threat vectors that could like compromise American communism and stuff. Like, no matter how hard I try, I'm 100% sure that there's something I'm not able to account for. I'm 100% sure there's always a variable that someone else is going to have to point out for me. There's no way what's that? Like people meme on it, but it was like a U.S. Official who said, "Well, here's the thing: we don't know what we don't know." You know what I'm saying?
That was rough.
Yeah.
The known unknowns. Yeah.
Everyone clowns on Rumsfeld for that because we don't know where the $2.4 trillion went in the 9/11 shit. It's good that people clown on him for that, but that quote, you got to keep that quote in your back pocket.
The unknown unknowns. That's what you.
The unknown unknowns. You don't even know the things. You don't even know the things that you don't know.
Well, what I'm saying. First step is, we got to do the boner socialism stream at some point. But it's a lot of these people are here to get boners, not to do politics. Is the basic thesis.
We will do the boner socialism stream. Yeah, we're approaching the 2 hour mark now. So
what is that?
That must be either you or Yankee Tanky. Yeah, that was Yankee Tanky's phone. So we'll wrap it up. Well, we'll wrap it up as even more because Voidborn and Milkman, you both got closing statements, and then Yankee Tanky came back on. So we'll just keep it to closing statements from Yankee Tanky before we wrap it up. Any last thoughts on the stream?
Well, I guess my last thoughts on the stream were I was not here for 2 segments of the stream, and I do apologize. The globalists, we're blaming the globalists. The globalists are after the Yankee Tanky. They're trying to shut the barracks down, but you won't shut the barracks down. You will never be able to shut the barracks down.
You heard it from the Yankee Tanky, shaking people down for their lunch money since 1973. You are watching the Milkman, voted #1 boner killer in America. And special guest speaker on the stream, special surprise guest, Voidborn, bringing you the top 100 hits from the FBI's most wanted list. All dark web, all the time. And this is Teray, co-host of Hard Targets. We're going to close it out for you. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Barracks on Twitter. Make sure to follow us on our separate YouTube accounts. Let me pull up the banner here. You can follow the Yankee Tankies YouTube at the Yankee Tanky 7133. You can follow Hard Targets. That's me at Hard Targets Intel. All of our separate Twitters are on the Twitter page. Go and follow it. What are you doing? You're not getting discourse this hot anywhere else. That being said, thank you all for tuning in. Good night, y'all.